In the days of old, the gods had the whole earth distributed among them by allotment. And Poseidon, receiving for his lot the island of Atlantis, begat children by a mortal woman, and settled them in a part of the island, looking towards the sea. But in the centre of the whole island there was a plain which is said to have been the fairest of all plains, and very fertile. So begins Plato's account in his dialogue Critias of the lost continent Atlantis, the archetypal paradise sunk beneath the waves by its own hubris. Yet the story of Atlantis is only the first element of a much larger tale, the story of its ruler, Poseidon. Of all the primordial forces that have captured the human imagination, few possess the depth, ambiguity, and sheer foundational power of the one known to the Greeks as Poseidon and to the Romans as Neptune. He is a deity of immense contradictions and profound synthesis, an entity whose dominion stretches from the physical oceans that cover our world to the imaginal seas within our own minds. To explore this figure is to navigate a current that flows through mythology, philosophy, psychology, astrology, astronomy, alchemy, chemistry, and even the structure of our brains. He is the earth shaker, the tamer of horses, the keeper of the abyss, and the mystic dreamer. His story is a sprawling, interconnected web of symbols and revelations, a deep dive into the nature of the fluid, the unconscious, and the foundational powers that lie just beneath the surface of our solid reality. This journey seeks to chart those depths, drawing together the ancient hymns, the philosophical dialogues, the psychological observations, and the celestial mechanics that all echo with the roar of his waves. From the lost continent of Atlantis to the radioactive heart of modern physics, from the seahorse-shaped memory center in our heads to the distant blue planet at the edge of our solar system, we find the indelible mark of the trident. Welcome to Irrevelato. I reveal the secrets you deserve to know, the lives and stories of luminaries and gods, the obsessive interdisciplinarity we all so desperately need, the bridge between the old stories and the new findings. If you're new here, get comfortable, because this is going to be a hell of a ride. If this is not our first rendezvous, thank you for being here, dear friend. Before we begin, allow me to tell you a few words about Irrevelato. This is an independent project supported only by its invaluable audience. I work like a madman most of my waking hours to create these videos, weekends included. A subscribe, a like, a share, a comment, or simply watching this video through to completion makes all the difference in the world for me. Activating the notification bell will also ensure you never miss any of my videos. And you know how algorithms distort the natural selection of what people want and need to see these days. For other ways to support Irrevelato, please read the description below. Either way, whether your contribution is financial or not, what makes me happy is planting ideas that blossom into lessons that allow you to become the best version of yourself, to think more freely and critically, to live in ways you did not think were possible. So thank you for being here. Now, let's find out who Poseidon or Neptune really is. The quest to understand a god begins with the name, which acts as the vibratory key that unlocks the essence of their power. In Plato's dialogue Cratylus, Socrates examines the origins of the name Poseidon, offering a series of etymological possibilities that, woven together, paint a remarkably complete portrait of the deity's multifaceted nature. Each interpretation reveals a different facet of his dominion. The first suggestion is that the name is a contraction of Posidesmos, meaning the chain of the feet. Socrates explains this by imagining the original name giver as a traveler whose journey is halted by the sea. The watery element becomes a fetter, a beautiful and powerful boundary that prevents further progress on foot. The original inventor of the name had been stopped by the watery element in his walks and not allowed to go on, and therefore he called the ruler of this element Poseidon, writes Plato. This etymology immediately establishes the god as a lord of boundaries and limitations, the personification of that vast horizontal expanse that defines the limits of the terrestrial world. The sea is the ultimate barrier, the great divider of continents, a force that dictates the course of travel and the shape of civilization. He is the chain and the cosmic boundary that forces humanity to innovate, to build ships, and to learn navigation, transforming a limitation into a gateway for exploration. A second possibility offered by Plato is that the name was originally spelled with a double L, deriving from pola-eidos, which means the one who knows many things. This interpretation shifts the focus from the physical barrier of the sea to the intellectual and spiritual depths it represents. We often imagine and see the ocean only at its surface. But there is a profound abyss, holding mysteries, life forms, and forgotten histories in its dark bosom. To be the lord of this realm is to possess a deep, all-encompassing knowledge. It is an intuitive, fluid wisdom, unlike the fiery, intellectual clarity of a sky god. The many things Poseidon knows are the secrets of the deep, the ancient truths hidden from the sunlit world of conscious thought. As Carl Jung would later quote from Homer in his work, Ion, Poseidon's servant, the prophetic Proteus, is the old man of the sea, who always tells the truth, who owes allegiance to Poseidon and knows the sea in all its depths. This deep knowledge is a core attribute of the god, a wisdom that is primordial and absolute. And perhaps this is why the idea that the unconscious is like an ocean became such a common metaphor. The third etymology Plato suggests is the one that has become most famous, connecting Poseidon to his most dramatic and terrifying power. The name, Socrates posits, may have originated from the Greek verb sien, meaning to shake, with the letters P and D added over time. This makes him, quite literally, the earth shaker. Throughout the ancient texts, this epithet is his most consistent. Hesiod's Theogony calls him Poseidon, the earth holder who shakes the earth. The Homeric hymn dedicated to him addresses him as O Shaker of the Earth. Homer's Iliad is replete with moments where the pillars of the world tremble at his might. During the clash of the gods, Homer writes, "From beneath did Poseidon cause the vast earth to quake, and the steep crests of the mountains. All the roots of many-fountained Ida were shaken, and all her peaks, and the city of the Trojans, and the ships of the Achaeans." This power reveals that his dominion is not confined to the sea. The ancients understood that the forces that moved the oceans were linked to the convulsions of the land. He represents the planet's unstable liquid core, as the magmatic sea upon which the tectonic plates of our world float. His power is foundational, a reminder that the solid ground beneath our feet is a thin crust over a turbulent, fluid immensity. These three etymologies from Plato's Cratylus form a perfect trinity of meaning. Poseidesmos, the chain of the feet, defines his role in relation to humanity and the surface world. In other words, the god of boundaries. Pola-eidos, the knower of many things, describes his inner nature or the wisdom of the unfathomable depths. And Seien, the shaker, expresses his dynamic and awesome power, the force that can unmake the very world we stand upon. The Roman name Neptune carries its own resonance. As Cicero notes in Of the Nature of Gods, the dominion of the sea is given therefore to Neptune, whose name Neptunus is derived anando from swimming. While perhaps less philosophically rich than the Greek origins, this name grounds the god firmly in his primary element, emphasizing the act of movement and life within the water. Whether he is the chain, the sage, or the shaker, his essence is inextricably linked to the great fluid mystery that births, defines, and can destroy the world. Perhaps this is what Bruce Lee meant when he said, "Be water, my friend." The cosmic order of the Greek pantheon was established through a great division of power. After the overthrow of their father, Kronos, the three divine brothers drew lots for their respective domains. This foundational myth, referenced by Homer in the Iliad and by Plato in the Gorgias, establishes Poseidon's place in the cosmos. Plato recounts the lore from the days of Kronos. He who lived justly would go to the islands of the blessed, while the unjust would be sent to Tartarus. This judgment was carried out by the sons of Kronos after they divided the empire which they inherited from their father. Zeus received the sky, which represented the luminous realm of consciousness and divine order. Hades received the underworld, or the unseen kingdom of the dead, and the repository of hidden wealth. And Poseidon received the sea. The Orphic hymn to Poseidon beautifully captures the nature of his domain. Hear Neptune Poseidon, ruler of the sea profound, whose liquid grasp begirts the solid ground, earth-shaking, dark-haired god. The liquid plains, the third division, fate to thee ordains. This third division is more than just a third of the physical world. It is a unique existential plane, a realm that is neither the celestial heaven nor the chthonic underworld, but a middle kingdom that is both visible and mysterious, and both life-giving and destructive. It is the source of all life, the unfruitful sea, as Hesiod calls it, yet teeming with more life than any other part of the planet. While the sea was his primary realm, his authority within the new cosmic order extended even to the boundaries of the underworld. He was also an enforcer of his brother's authority. After the Titans were defeated, as Hesiod recounts in the Theogony, they were hidden under misty gloom, in a dank place where are the ends of the huge earth. To ensure their eternal imprisonment, Poseidon fixed gates of bronze upon it, and a wall runs all round it on every side. He is the divine jailer, whose power over metal and boundaries secures the cosmic prison of Tartarus. His rule is absolute within this domain. The Orphic hymn continues, "Thy awful hand the brazen trident bears, and ocean's utmost bound thy will reveres. When fiercely riding through the boiling sea, thy hoarse command the trembling waves obey." The trident is the perfect symbol of his power. It is an instrument of the sea, a fishing spear, yet its three prongs can also represent the three properties of water: liquid, solid, and gas, or perhaps the three functions revealed in his name: binding, knowing, and shaking. With it, he commands the waves, stirs the tempests, and strikes the earth. In Ovid's Metamorphoses, during the Great Flood, it is a single act of his that unleashes the cataclysm. Neptune himself smites the earth with his trident. She trembles, and at the stroke flings open wide a way for the waters. The rivers overleap all bounds and flood the open plains, and not alone orchards, crops and herds, men and dwellings, but shrines as well, and their sacred contents do they sweep away. If any house has stood firm and has been able to resist that huge misfortune undestroyed, still do the overtopping waves cover its roof, and its towers lie hid beneath the flood. And now the sea and land have no distinction. All is sea, but a sea without a shore. This is the terror and the glory of his kingdom. It is a realm without fixed roads or permanent structures, a place of constant motion. Will Durant, in The Story of Civilization, notes the primal Greek worldview. The earth was Gaia, the sea was Poseidon. Thus Poseidon was not simply a god who lived in the sea, he was the sea. His moods were the ocean's moods. A calm passage was a sign of his favor. A storm was the manifestation of his rage. The Homeric hymn to Poseidon recognizes this duality, assigning him a twofold office: to be a tamer of horses and a savior of ships. Sailors depended on his mercy. Hesiod, in Works and Days, advises that the right time to sail is 50 days after the solstice, for at that time the winds are steady and the sea is harmless. Yet, he adds a crucial caveat: unless Poseidon the earth-shaker be set upon it, or Zeus, the king of the deathless gods, wish to slay them, for the issues of good and evil alike are with them. His palace, as described in the Iliad, lies deep within this realm, a place of shimmering mystery. There is a wide cavern in the depths of the deep mere, midway between Tenedos and rugged Imbros. There Poseidon, the shaker of earth, stayed his horses, and loosed them from the car, and cast before them food ambrosial to graze upon, and about their feet he put hobbles of gold, neither to be broken nor loosed, that they might abide fast where they were against the return of their lord. And himself he went to the host of the Achaeans. It is from these unplumbed depths that his power emanates, a power that could rival even that of Zeus. A tense exchange in the Iliad reveals the delicate balance of power between the brothers. When Zeus sends a message via the messenger goddess Iris, commanding Poseidon to cease his involvement in the Trojan War, Poseidon erupts in indignation. He reminds Iris that the world was divided into 3 equal shares, and that he is in no way Zeus's subordinate. However, he ultimately yields, acknowledging Zeus's status as the elder brother. Herein dread grief cometh upon my heart and soul, when so any is minded to upbraid with angry words one of like portion with himself, to whom fate hath decreed an equal share. Howbeit for this present will I yield, despite mine indignation. This scene powerfully illustrates the cosmic politics of Olympus. Poseidon's deference is a calculated political act, not a simple submission. His withdrawal is conditional, armed with a formidable ultimatum that he instructs Iris to deliver to the king of the gods in full. Yet another thing will I tell thee, and make this threat in my wrath. If in despite of me and of Athene, driver of the spoil, and of Hera and Hermes and Lord Hephaestus, he shall spare steep Ilios, and shall be minded not to lay it waste, neither to give great might to the Argives, let him know this, that between us twain shall be wrath that naught can appease. The passage is a revelation of his true power. He invokes an entire Pro-Achaean coalition of gods, explicitly naming Athena, Hera, Hermes, and Hephaestus, thereby transforming a personal grievance into a factional crisis. He is reminding Zeus that he does not stand alone, and that defying his will means defying a significant portion of the Olympian court. The threat itself, a wrath that naught can appease, signifies a permanent and irreconcilable schism, a promise of eternal enmity that would disrupt the cosmic order. His kingdom is therefore a wild, untamable force, a liquid chaos bound not only by the shores of the land and the will of fate, but by the unyielding terms of his own honor and the immense political weight of his divine alliances. Poseidon's generative power is as vast and untamed as the sea itself. His liaisons with goddesses, nymphs, and mortal women produced a staggering array of offspring, ranging from noble kings and heroes to fearsome giants and monsters. This procreative drive reflects the ocean's own fecundity and ability to spawn life in countless forms. His children are often marked by a connection to his core attributes: immense strength, a wild or untamable nature, a connection to horses, or a mastery of the aquatic realm. Hesiod's writings provide a glimpse into the breadth of his fatherhood. In the Theogony, he is the dark-haired one who lay with the mortal Gorgon Medusa in a soft meadow amid spring flowers. From this union, born from Medusa's severed neck, sprang the winged horse Pegasus and the giant Chrysaor. This myth is profoundly symbolic. The union of the sea god with a monstrous chthonic female figure produces two extraordinary beings. One a symbol of poetic inspiration and flight, Pegasus. The other, a golden sworded warrior. It is the creative potential lurking within the monstrous and the deep. Bellerophon, the hero who tamed Pegasus, was also said to be Poseidon's son. As Hesiod recounts in the catalogues of women, Bellerophon's mother lay in the arms of Poseidon and bare in the house of Glaucus blameless Bellerophon, surpassing all men over the boundless sea. Next, the passage reveals the nature of this father-son relationship, showing that the success of the hero was a direct result of his divine patronage. Hesiod continues, "And when he began to roam, his father gave him Pegasus, who would bear him most swiftly on his wings, and flew unwearying everywhere over the earth, for like the gales he would course along. With him, Bellerophon caught and slew the fire-breathing Chimera." The gift is explicit and purposeful. Poseidon, the father, equips his heroic son with the means to achieve his destiny. Pegasus, the creature of wind and spirit, becomes the divine tool that allows a mortal hero to conquer an earthbound and fire-breathing monster, Chimera. This is a remarkable duality in Poseidon's nature. He is a progenitor of monstrous beings, and simultaneously the ultimate patron of the heroes who impose order upon them. The god fathers the hero, and from a separate, monstrous union, he fathers the magical steed, ultimately bringing them together in a perfect synthesis of divine lineage to overcome chaos. His children often possess supernatural abilities, as gifts bestowed by their divine father. The hero Periclymenus, son of Neleus, was one such case. Hesiod describes him as lordly Periclymenus, happy he. For earth-shaking, Poseidon gave him all manner of gifts. At one time he would appear among birds, an eagle, and again at another he would be an ant, a marvel to see, and then a shining swarm of bees. And again at another time a dread relentless snake, and he possessed all manner of gifts which cannot be told, and these then ensnared him through the devising of Athene. This power of shape-shifting is a direct inheritance from the god of the fluid, ever-changing sea. a power also embodied by his servant Proteus. The ability to transform reflects the nature of water itself, which has no fixed form. But this power to alter physical form was not limited to his offspring. In the strange legend of Caeneus, as mentioned by Plato in his Laws, Poseidon transformed the maiden Caenis into a man. After having his way with her, he granted her a wish. Desiring to be invulnerable to weapons, she asked to be changed into a man, and he obliged, making Caeneus a mighty, unconquerable warrior. This is the god as a granter of wishes and a transfigurer of bodies, his power extending to both gender and identity. In the Odyssey, we encounter one of his most famous and fearsome children, the Cyclops Polyphemus. Polyphemus is the son of Poseidon and the sea nymph Thoosa. He embodies the brutal, primal, and inhospitable side of his father's nature. He's a lawless giant who devours Odysseus's men, a force of raw and uncivilized nature. When Odysseus blinds the Cyclops, he incurs the full, unrelenting wrath of Poseidon. Polyphemus's prayer seals Odysseus's fate for the next decade. Hear me, great Neptune. If I am indeed your own true begotten son, grant that Ulysses may never reach his home alive, or if he must get back to his friends at last, let him do so late and in sore plight after losing all his men. And Poseidon's relentless persecution of Odysseus is not merely the anger of a god slighted. It is the fury of a father defending his monstrous son, a testament to his loyalty to his own strange and terrible progeny. His romantic pursuits often involve transformation and divine deception. Ovid's Metamorphoses provides a veritable catalogue of these encounters, where the goddess Arachne lists the god's indiscretions. Thee also, Neptune, she pictured, changed to a grim bull with the Aeolian maiden. Now as Enipeus thou dost beget the Aloidae, as a ram deceiv'st Bisaltis, he golden-haired mother of corn, most gentle, knew thee as a horse. The snake-haired mother of the winged horse knew thee as a winged bird. Melantho knew thee as a dolphin. This litany of transformations shows a god who can assume any form to achieve his desires, dissolving his own boundaries to merge with his beloved. But no story captures the complexity of these unions better than that of Tyro, as recounted in the Odyssey. The myth presents two irreconcilable truths. From one perspective, it is a story of divine will and the founding of a dynasty. Tyro, a mortal woman in love with the river god Enipeus, is met by Poseidon, who assumes the river's form. At the mouth of the river, a huge blue wave arched itself like a mountain over them to hide both woman and god, creating a sacred chamber for their union, during which Tyro is placed in a deep slumber. Afterwards, the god reveals himself, prophesies the birth of noble twins, and commands her secrecy. For an ancient audience, this is a tale of a god's power, a fated, mystical event that produces the heroes Peleus and Neleus. From a modern ethical perspective, the same story is a narrative of sexual assault. Poseidon uses deception and a magically induced unconsciousness that removes any possibility of consent. His final command, to hold your tongue, is an act of silencing a victim to ensure his own impunity. A complete impartial observation requires holding both realities. The story functions as a sacred foundation myth within its own cultural context, and it is simultaneously a disturbing account of divine coercion and rape when viewed through a modern lens. The tension between these two truths is central to understanding the often brutal nature of the gods. Yet at the same time, beyond his roles as a father and a rival, Poseidon also acts as a sober and honorable statesman among the Olympians, a figure whose word is sufficient to resolve divine conflicts. This gravitas is showcased in the Odyssey during the embarrassing affair of Mars and Venus. While other gods laugh at the lovers trapped in Vulcan's net, Homer notes that Neptune took it all seriously. He steps forward as a mediator and guarantor, imploring Vulcan to release the captive. "Let him go," he cried, "and I will undertake, as you require, that he shall pay you all the damages that are held reasonable among the immortal gods." When Vulcan hesitates, doubting Mars's credit, Poseidon makes his promise absolute, placing his own honor on the line. "Vulcan," said Neptune, "if Mars goes away without paying his damages, I will pay you myself." In this moment, he is neither a raging force nor a deceptive lover, but a figure of immense integrity, whose surety is the bedrock that allows divine order to be restored. His generative power could also be channeled into perfect order. In Plato's Critias, Poseidon falls in love with the mortal woman Cleito, and for her becomes a divine architect. He surrounds her hill with perfect concentric rings of land and water. With Cleito, he also begat and brought up 5 pairs of twin male children. The eldest, Atlas, became the first king of Atlantis. These 10 sons were the progenitors of a magnificent civilization and a testament to the creative and ordering power of the sea god, when his generative force is channeled through a noble human lineage. Through these myriad children, from the monstrous Cyclops to the inspired Pegasus, from the shape-shifting Periclymenus to the philosopher King Atlas, Poseidon populates the world of myth with beings who carry within them the chaotic, creative, and powerful essence of the deep. The most detailed and captivating story associated with Poseidon is Plato's account of the lost island of Atlantis. Recounted in the dialogues Timaeus and Critias, the tale is presented as a true history, passed down from Egyptian priests to the Athenian lawgiver Solon. It is a story of a perfect civilization, founded and nurtured by Poseidon himself, that ultimately fell due to its own moral decay. The narrative is a profound exploration of divine order, human hubris, and the bond between a god and his chosen people. Manly P. Hall, in The Secret Teachings of All Ages, provides a masterful summary of Plato's account, emphasizing its philosophical and symbolic weight. According to Plato, in the primordial age, the gods divided the earth among themselves. To Poseidon was given the sea and the island continent of Atlantis. The god found a home on the island for a mortal woman named Cleito, with whom he fell in love after the death of her parents. His first act as a divine architect was to create a sanctuary for her, a perfect and defensible abode. Plato writes, Poseidon fell in love with her and had intercourse with her, and breaking the ground, enclosed the hill in which she dwelt all round, making alternate zones of sea and land larger and smaller, encircling one another. There were 2 of land and 3 of water, which he turned as with a lathe, each having its circumference equidistant every way from the center. This act of divine engineering is a powerful symbol of order emerging from chaos. Poseidon, the lord of the formless ocean, creates a microcosm of perfect geometric form, or a mandala of earth and water, if you will. He also provides for the island's sustenance, bringing up 2 springs of water from beneath the earth, one of warm water and the other of cold, and making every variety of food to spring up abundantly from the soil. From his union with Cleito, 5 pairs of twin sons were born, the 10 founding kings of Atlantis. The eldest, Atlas, held dominion over the others, and the entire kingdom was organized under a divinely ordained constitution. For generations, this divine order produced a society of unparalleled achievement. As Hall summarizes from Plato's account, the descendants of Atlas continued as rulers of Atlantis, and with wise government and industry, elevated the country to a position of surpassing dignity. The natural resources of Atlantis were apparently limitless. Precious metals were mined, wild animals domesticated, and perfumes distilled from its fragrant flowers. While enjoying the abundance natural to their semi-tropic location, the Atlanteans employed themselves also in the erection of palaces, temples, and docks. They bridged the zones of sea and later dug a deep canal to connect the outer ocean with the central island, where stood the palaces and temple of Poseidon, which excelled all other structures in magnificence. A network of bridges and canals was created by the Atlanteans to unite the various parts of their kingdom. At the very heart of the central island stood the Temple of Poseidon, a structure of unparalleled magnificence. Plato's description, as relayed by Hall, tells a story of a building whose exterior was entirely covered with silver and its pinnacles with gold. The interior was a breathtaking display of ivory, gold, silver, and orichalc, even to the pillars and floor. The centerpiece of this sacred space was a colossal golden statue of the god himself, not seated in serene contemplation, but in action. Poseidon, standing in a chariot drawn by 6 winged horses, about him 100 nereids riding on dolphins. This image captures the dynamic and powerful nature of the god, who can rightly be called the Lord of Motion and the master of the creatures of the deep. The governance of Atlantis was based on a set of laws inscribed by the first kings upon a pillar of orichalcum, the mysterious and precious metal, which stood within the temple. Plato states, the order of precedence among them and their mutual relations were regulated by the commands of Poseidon, which the law had handed down. The 10 kings would gather at the pillar at alternating intervals of 5 and 6 years, thus giving equal honor to the odd and to the even number. A detail that clearly highlights the harmony and balance central to the Atlantean way of life. Their most sacred ritual was a bull sacrifice, a ceremony steeped in cosmic significance. The kings, alone in the temple, would hunt bulls that roamed freely within the sacred precinct. They captured a bull without weapons, but with staves and nooses, a test of skill and cooperation rather than brute force. Some bulls would have the range of the temple of Poseidon. The captured bull was then led to the pillar of orichalcum, and its throat was cut over the top, so that the blood fell upon the sacred inscription. After the sacrifice, the kings would pour a libation and swear an oath. They would judge according to the laws on the pillar, and would punish him who in any point had already transgressed them, and that for the future they would not, if they could help, offend against the writing on the pillar, and would neither command others nor obey any ruler who commanded them, to act otherwise than according to the laws of their father Poseidon. This elaborate ritual reveals a side of Poseidon often overlooked. He is a god of law, covenants and oaths. While his nature can be chaotic and destructive, in Atlantis he is the source of a just and harmonious social order. His laws, inscribed on the pillar and consecrated with blood, are the foundation of a golden age. The chief among these laws, according to Plato, were that they should not take up arms against each other, and that they should come to the assistance of any of their number who was attacked. Hall notes a crucial detail from Plato. In matters of war and great moment, the final decision was in the hands of the direct descendants of the family of Atlas. No king had the power of life and death over his kinsmen without the assent of a majority of the 10. Evidence for the historical reality of Atlantis has been a subject of debate for centuries, with commentators drawing on sources beyond Plato. Hall points to several such accounts. In the introduction to his translation of the Timaeus, Thomas Taylor quotes from a history of Ethiopia written by Marcellus, which contains the following reference to Atlantis. For they relate that in their time there were 7 islands in the Atlantic Sea, sacred to Proserpine, and besides these, 3 others of an immense magnitude, one of which was sacred to Pluto, another to Ammon, and another, which is the middle of these, and is of 1,000 stadia, to Neptune. Crantor, commenting upon Plato, asserted that the Egyptian priests declared the story of Atlantis to be written upon pillars which were still preserved circa 300 BC. Ignatius Donnelly, who gave the subject of Atlantis profound study, believed that horses were first domesticated by the Atlanteans, for which reason they have always been considered peculiarly sacred to Poseidon. For many generations, the descendants of Atlas and his brothers ruled with wisdom, and their kingdom flourished. But as Plato recounts, the divine portion within them began to fade, diluted by too frequent admixture with mortal stock. Greed and ambition replaced virtue. They sought to conquer the world, and in doing so they transgressed the divine order established by their ancestor. For this hubris they were punished. The island of Atlantis was destroyed in a single day and night of catastrophic earthquakes and floods, sinking beneath the waves and vanishing from the world. Manly P. Hall interprets this story as a profound philosophical allegory. From an esoteric perspective, the structure of the kingdom is a cosmic map. As Hall explains, philosophically the 10 islands symbolize the triune powers of the superior deity and the 7 regents who bow before his eternal throne. This frames Atlantis as a terrestrial reflection of a celestial hierarchy, with its 10 kings mirroring the divine trinity, and the 7 creative powers often associated with the planets. The cataclysm itself is given a spiritual meaning, a parallel to another foundational myth of humanity's descent. Hall writes, both the sinking of Atlantis and the biblical story of the fall of man signify spiritual involution, a prerequisite to conscious evolution. The sinking of this perfect world ruled by the laws of the deep-knowing Poseidon represents the necessary fall of the human spirit into the turbulent sea of materialism and ignorance. The story of Atlantis is the ultimate testament to Poseidon's dual nature. He is the divine creator who can craft a paradise of perfect order, and he is the divine destroyer who can, with a single shake of the earth, reclaim his creation and return it to the watery abyss from which it came. It stands as an eternal warning about the sacred balance between divine heritage and mortal fallibility. The memory of the gods speaks through many voices. Beyond the grand verses of epic poetry, it whispers from the humble, meticulous records of palace scribes. On clay tablets baked hard by the fires that consumed the Mycenaean civilization around 1200 BCE, we find the earliest known form of the Greek language, called Linear B. These tablets are practical administrative lists chronicling the flow of oil, grain, wine, and livestock through the arteries of a lost world. Within these accounts from Pylos and Knossos lies a stunning secret of the pantheon. A great god, Poseidon, is named with remarkable frequency. He appears as a preeminent force, a primary recipient of offerings on a scale that suggests a status far exceeding that of a simple brother among equals. His cult, richly supplied and central to the life of the palace, positions him as the dominant power, worshipped alongside a consort, Poseidon, in a fully realized religious system. This Poseidon was principally a god of the earth. His most enduring epithet, Earth-shaker, was the very core of his identity. In a seismically active world, ringed by volcanoes and traced with fault lines, the power to shake the foundations of a citadel was the ultimate expression of divine might. For the Mycenaeans, who built their homes with massive cyclopean walls, an earthquake was understood as an act of terrifying divine will, and Poseidon was its source. His dominion, however, was twofold. The same chthonic power that could destroy could also create. He was the master of the waters beneath the earth, the mysterious source that fed the freshwater springs and wells upon which all life depended. This made him a god of fertility and sustenance, his hand on the very taproot of existence. The later Greeks remembered this aspect, attributing the creation of certain springs to the strike of his trident as a faint echo of his ancient role as the bringer forth of life from the solid ground. His deep connection to the bull, a creature of immense terrestrial power and generative force, is another potent remnant of this period, when he was the divine embodiment of the earth's violent and fecund energy. Seen through this historical lens, the Olympian myth of the three brothers dividing the cosmos becomes a profound political revolution. The ascendancy of Zeus, the Indo-European skyfather, represents a deep shift in the Greek worldview, a movement from the primacy of the earth towards the primacy of the heavens. It is the victory of a hierarchical, patriarchal and sky-oriented cosmology over an older and earth-based one. The casting of lots is the formal mechanism of this new regime, a seemingly fair process that ratifies a radical restructuring of divine power. Poseidon, the ancient king of the earth, is assigned the sea. It is a vast and magnificent domain, yet it is also a form of containment. He is granted a horizontal kingdom of immense breadth, while the supreme vertical axis of power, stretching from the heavens to the earth, is claimed by Zeus. The sea itself, as Plato's Socrates would later intuit in the Cratylus, becomes a boundary, a chain for the feet, Posidesmos. This ancient memory of a lost dominion provides a powerful psychological key to his character in the later myths. His legendary rage in the Iliad, his indignation at Zeus's commands, his assertion that he is of like portion and equal share, is the deep, resonant, and rightful fury of a deposed monarch. He is a king who remembers a time when the very ground upon which the Olympians built their new world was his exclusive throne. Beyond the pages of epic poetry, Poseidon was a living presence in the ancient world, a formidable deity whose favor was actively sought and whose wrath was deeply feared. His worship was a rich mixture of rites and beliefs that varied dramatically by region, reflecting his many faces. His followers were sailors and fishermen, certainly, but also coastal farmers fearing saltwater floods and inland communities in tectonically active regions who knew him primarily as the terrifying Earthshaker. The titles used in his cults reveal this multifaceted nature. As Poseidon Asphelios, the securer, he was supplicated to prevent the earthquakes that plagued inland Arcadia. As Poseidon Phytalmios, the nourisher of plants, he was thanked for the life-giving springs that irrigated fields, a benevolent agricultural role that likely evolved from his syncretism with the Etruscan god of wells, Nethans. The grandest of his festivals were the Isthmian Games, held every 2 years at his sanctuary on the Isthmus of Corinth. One of the 4 great Pan-Hellenic Games, it rivaled the Olympics in prestige, drawing competitors from across the Hellenic world to honor the god through athletic and equestrian contests. Victors were crowned with a wreath of wild celery, or later, pine. These symbols were connected to the underworld as a subtle acknowledgement of the chthonic power of a god whose domain extended to the dark depths. In Rome, the summer festival of Neptunalia was celebrated on July 23rd. Here, the focus shifted from the sea to a desperate plea for fresh water. Citizens built huts of branches and leaves called umbrae, creating shade and praying for relief from the scorching summer drought, revealing a relationship with the god based on a different kind of survival. These festivals were not merely human affairs. The gods themselves attended, and the opening of the Odyssey reveals the profound mechanics of this divine participation. While the other gods gather on Olympus to debate the fate of Odysseus, Poseidon is absent. Homer explains his whereabouts. Now Neptune had gone off to the Ethiopians, who were at the world's end. He had gone there to accept a hecatomb of sheep and oxen, and was enjoying himself at his festival. The Ethiopians, in the Greek imagination, were a people living at the sacred periphery of the world, in a liminal space where the veil between mortal and divine was thin. Their piety was considered so pure that it could command the physical presence of a major Olympian. The offering itself, a hecatomb, was a massive investment of communal wealth. Poseidon's journey to the world's end also signifies that not all worship is equal. There is a hierarchy of piety, and its purest form can physically pull a god from his throne. The key revelation is that the god was enjoying himself. The gods were believed to feed on the aroma of the sacrifice, the nyes, and to delight in the sounds and sights of genuine devotion. Mortals, therefore, possess a form of agency. They can create a ritual so beautiful, so generous, and so correct that it brings pleasure to a divine being. Poseidon's temples were often built on dramatic coastal headlands, powerful statements of faith against the immensity of the sea. The magnificent temple at Cape Sunion, its white columns a beacon against the blue Aegean, served as the last sanctuary sailors saw leaving Athens and the first they saw upon their return. Yet his most famous shrine may have been within the Erechtheion on the Athenian Acropolis, a single temple that famously housed the cults of both Poseidon and his great rival Athena. It was a living monument to their eternal contest, said to contain the saltwater spring he created with his trident. His influence even extended to prophecy, as the great oracle at Delphi, the navel of the world, was said to have belonged to Gaia and then to Poseidon, before it was claimed by Apollo, linking him to the deep prophetic voice of the earth itself. The rites performed in his honor were potent and direct. Homer provides glimpses of the central ritual of sacrificing bulls. In the Odyssey, Telemachus arrives at Pylos to find the people offering sacrifice of black bulls to Neptune, lord of the earthquake. The bull, a creature of immense strength, fertility, and thundering power, was his perfect animal counterpart. Its dark color evoked the mysterious depths of the sea. In some regions, the rites were more dramatic, with horses being drowned in the churning waves. A powerful and visceral offering that returned the god's sacred animal to its elemental source. Worshippers made his presence tangible through votive offerings left at his shrines, miniature bronze tridents, heavy stone anchors, and even terracotta models of ships, each a physical prayer for a safe voyage or a token of thanks for a life spared. And while direct human sacrifice was not a feature of his known cult, the mythological tribute in Crete of Athenian youths to the Minotaur, which was in some sense Poseidon's monstrous grandson, carries the dark echo of appeasing a terrifying sea power with human life. Sailors depended entirely on his mercy. The Orphic hymn is a direct prayer for his favor, asking him to confirm Earth's basis, and with prosperous gales waft ships along and swell the spacious sails. Add gentle peace and fair-haired health beside, and pour abundance in a blameless tide. The prayer is for stability on both land and sea, a plea for the earth-shaker to remain still and for the Lord of the Deep to be calm. Through these temples, festivals, and blood sacrifices, the ancient Greeks maintained their vital, precarious relationship with the great god of the sea. A city is a living organism, a vessel of collective identity that chooses the principles that will define its character and guide its destiny. For ancient Athens, this moment of self-definition was immortalized in a divine contest upon the bare rock of the Acropolis between two formidable Olympian powers, Poseidon and Athena. This was a foundational argument about the nature of civilization, a choice between two paths to greatness, where each is symbolized by a miraculous offering. To stake his claim, Poseidon, in a display of awesome and immediate power, struck the limestone heart of the hill with his trident. From the fractured rock, a spring of salt water instantly appeared. This was a gift of raw and untamable potential. It was the sea itself brought to the mountaintop. It symbolized a future built on maritime supremacy, the wealth of global trade, and the power of a naval empire to project its force across the waves. It was the promise of a dynamic, outward-facing and daring society, willing to risk the dangers of the deep for glory and riches. It was power untethered from nurture. Athena's response was a gesture of quiet and patient cultivation. She knelt and planted a seed in the earth beside Poseidon's spring, and from it grew the world's first olive tree. This gift was the antithesis of Poseidon's. The tree was slow and deliberate. The tree was endlessly fruitful. Its olives provided food. Its oil provided fuel for lamps, a lubricant for the body, and a priceless commodity for trade. Its wood provided building material. The olive branch itself would become the universal symbol of peace. This was a gift of civilization in its most complete sense. It represented a future built on agriculture, on long-term stability, on peace, and on the wisdom, Sophia, and skill, techne, required to cultivate the earth and reap its rewards. It was a vision of a society that was rooted, self-sustaining, and prosperous through thoughtful labor. The choice fell to the gods, or in some versions to the citizens of Athens themselves, and they chose the olive tree. In this moment, Athens defined its soul. It declared that its foundation would be wisdom, law, and order. The city turned its face toward the cultivated field, before turning it toward the open sea. Poseidon's reaction was one of predictable rage. Spurned, he was said to have inundated the Attic plain with a flood, a stark and immediate demonstration of the consequences of slighting the power of the deep. The genius of the Athenians was their ultimate recognition that both powers were necessary. The magnificent and unique temple of the Erechtheion was later constructed on the same site. It was a building deliberately designed to be asymmetrical, a complex sanctuary that housed within its walls both the saltwater sea of Poseidon and the sacred olive tree of Athena. This structure is a profound architectural statement of synthesis. It is a monument to the understanding that a truly great civilization survives on both wisdom and power. It must exist in a state of permanent creative tension, honoring the rational, ordering principles of the mind while respecting and integrating the deep, powerful and ambitious drives that surge up from the primordial unconscious. The Erechtheion teaches that Athens, to become the cradle of Western civilization, needed its philosophy and its fleet, its olive groves and its access to the untamable sea. The figure of Poseidon Neptune is not confined to the Greco-Roman world, but emerges in various guises across the maritime civilizations of antiquity, suggesting either widespread cultural exchange or, more intriguingly, a universal human recognition of the divine personality inherent in the sea itself. These parallel manifestations reveal consistent attributes: dominion over waters, the power to create or destroy through flooding, association with horses and bulls, and a temperament both generous and wrathful. The Canaanite Phoenician Yam presents the most direct parallel, being literally sea personified as a god of chaos and rivers. In the Ugaritic Baal cycle, Yam contests with Baal for cosmic sovereignty, much as Poseidon contests with Zeus for supremacy in the Greek consciousness. Yet while Yam is ultimately defeated and contained, Poseidon remains an active, unconquered force, perhaps reflecting the Greeks' more intimate and respectful relationship with the sea as a medium of trade and expansion, rather than purely a force of chaos to be subdued. The Mesopotamian Enki, Sumerian or Akkadian, offers more complex parallels. Like Poseidon, he rules the Abzu, the freshwater ocean beneath the earth, and is credited with wisdom and crafts. The epithet Nudimud, he who creates, reminds us of Poseidon's role as creator of Atlantis and father of the founding kings. Both gods share the curious attribute of being civilization bringers despite their association with the untamed waters. Enki's sacred number was 40, but his primary temple at Eridu was called Abzu, House of the Deep Waters, establishing the same chthonic geography that Poseidon inhabits. The Vedic tradition presents Varuna, whose evolution is particularly instructive. In the Rig Veda, Varuna is a cosmic sovereign, guardian of Rita, which is the cosmic order, and punisher of falsehood, who rules the waters and possesses 1,000 eyes to observe human conduct. His pasha, noose or binding cord, parallels Poseidon's etymology as chain of the feet. By the later Puranic period, Varuna had been diminished to merely a directional guardian of the west and lord of waters, his cosmic functions assumed by other deities. A demotion that parallels Poseidon's own reduction from the Mycenaean dominant sovereign to the Olympian lord of the seas. The Egyptian tradition offers no single equivalent, but rather distributes Poseidonic attributes across multiple deities. Sobek, the crocodile god, embodies the dangerous and fertile aspects of water, particularly the Nile's inundation. Nu represents the primordial waters from which all existence emerged, paralleling the Orphic conception of Oceanus. Most intriguingly, the god Khnum, who creates human bodies on his potter's wheel, was said to control the source of the Nile from caves beneath Elephantine, an exact parallel to Poseidon's control of freshwater springs from beneath the earth. The Celtic Manannan mac Lir and the Welsh Manawydan fab Lir present the archetype in its northern European expression. Manannan's ability to create impenetrable mists, his ownership of a horse that rides over sea as over land, and his governance of the other world across the Western Sea all echo Poseidonic themes. His epithet, rider of the main sea, creates an explicit equation between ocean waves and horses that appears independently in Greek imagery of Poseidon's white-maned hippocamps. Even in traditions without extensive maritime contact, we find traces. The Aztec Tlaloc, though primarily a rain deity, shares Poseidon's connection to both beneficial water and destructive flooding, his demand for child sacrifice paralleling the tribute of Athenian youths to the Cretan Minotaur. The Japanese Susanoo, god of storms and the sea, shares Poseidon's violent temperament and sibling conflicts with the sun deity Amaterasu, though their mythic resolution differs dramatically. What emerges from this comparative analysis is a recognition that the sea itself demands a particular kind of divine personality, powerful yet unpredictable, essential yet dangerous, creative yet destructive. The consistency of certain symbols, such as the horse, the bull, and the spring, suggests these animals and phenomena are intrinsically linked to the aquatic divine across human consciousness. The horse, with its flowing mane and thundering hooves, becomes a terrestrial expression of oceanic power. The bull, with its procreative force and sacrificial significance, embodies the fertile violence of the sea. This syncretistic evidence points to Poseidon-Neptune as a necessary divine function, the personality that emerges when conscious humanity confronts the vast, alien, and essential reality of the hydrosphere. He is reimagined and renamed, but never truly absent, for the sea itself demands acknowledgement of its divinity. The dominion of Poseidon extends far beyond the mythological and physical seas. It plunges directly into the depths of the human psyche. The ocean has long served as the most potent metaphor for the unconscious mind, a vast, dark and powerful realm teeming with strange life forms, hidden treasures and dangerous currents, all lying beneath the sunlit surface of conscious awareness. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung recognized this profound connection, seeing the sea as a symbol of the collective unconscious. The sea is the primordial source from which all individual consciousness arises. In this psychological framework, Poseidon becomes the archetypal figure of the unconscious itself and the lord of our inner depths. His character in myth perfectly aligns with the nature of the unconscious. He is emotional, volatile, and reactive. His rages can produce tsunamis of affect, overwhelming the rational ego, as seen in his relentless hounding of Odysseus. Yet he can also be a source of profound wisdom and life-giving creativity, as demonstrated in his patronage of Atlantis. The unconscious is similarly paradoxical, a wellspring of both monstrous impulses and divine inspiration. It holds our deepest instincts, our repressed memories, our creative potential, and the ancient collective wisdom of the species. To navigate one's own psyche is to sail upon Poseidon's sea, requiring courage, skill, and a deep respect for the power of the hidden depths. Jung provides a key insight through his discussion of Proteus, the prophetic sea god who serves Poseidon. Quoting Homer, Jung in Aeon highlights that Proteus knows the sea in all its depths and always tells the truth. Proteus is famous for his ability to shapeshift, refusing to yield his knowledge until he is captured and held fast through all his transformations. This is a perfect allegory for engaging with the unconscious. The truths of the deep psyche are not readily available. They appear in the shifting, symbolic language of dreams and fantasies. To grasp a deep truth, one must have the tenacity to hold on to the dream image, to wrestle with the symbol until it finally reveals its true form and its profound, unvarnished message. The shape-shifting servant of the sea god is the very voice of the deep unconscious, a voice that speaks truth through illusion. Another fascinating Jungian connection comes from Mysterium Conjunctionis, where Jung notes that Delos, the floating island where the sun god Apollo was born, rested on the four supports which Poseidon made for it. This seemingly minor mythological detail is a psychological revelation. Apollo, the god of light, logic, music, and consciousness, represents the structured, individuated ego. His birthplace, Delos, was initially unstable, wandering adrift upon the sea. It was Poseidon, the lord of the unconscious sea, who provided the four pillars that anchored the island, giving it a stable foundation. The psychological meaning is clear. Consciousness, Apollo, can only be securely born and developed upon a firm foundation rooted in the depths of the unconscious, Poseidon. A consciousness that denies or severs its connection to its unconscious roots becomes unmoored, a floating island subject to psychic inflation or neurotic instability. The dark, watery, and seemingly chaotic power of Poseidon provides the essential grounding for the light of reason. This connection between the sea god and the very structure of the mind finds its most startling and concrete expression in neuroscience, specifically in the naming of a vital brain structure, the hippocampus. This curved formation deep within the brain's temporal lobe, crucial for memory and spatial navigation, was named in the 16th century by the Venetian anatomist Julius Caesar Aranzi. He was struck by its resemblance to a seahorse. The word hippocampus is a direct fusion of the Greek words hippos, horse, and campos, sea monster. The hippocamp was a mythical creature, a horse with a fish's tail that was famous for pulling Poseidon's chariot. The implications of this connection are breathtaking. The part of our brain that consolidates short-term memory into long-term memory, the structure that creates our internal map of the world, is named for the steed of the god of the deep sea. Memory is our personal internal ocean. It is a vast repository of past experiences, emotions, and knowledge, much of which lies submerged beneath the surface of active recall. When we remember, we are fishing in the depths of this internal sea. That this sea of memory is governed by a structure named after Poseidon's creature is a piece of symbolic poetry written into the anatomy of our being. Poseidon's ancient epithet from Plato, Posidesmos, the chain of the feet, takes on a new psychological resonance here. Memory is the chain that binds our sense of self together through time. It is the thread of narrative that prevents our consciousness from dissolving into an endless, meaningless present. It grounds us, gives us identity, and allows us to navigate our lives. The hippocampus, the seahorse of Poseidon, is the forge where this chain of memory is created. Furthermore, its role in spatial navigation connects back to the sea god as the patron of sailors. To navigate the vast, featureless ocean, one needs a map and a sense of direction. To navigate the world, our brain relies on the hippocampus to create and store cognitive maps. Poseidon, the lord of the external ocean, has a direct counterpart in the neurological structure that allows us to navigate our personal world. A structure bearing the name of his own mythological mount. The god of the deep ocean is, in a very real sense, the architect of the deep structures of memory and place within the human mind. When the German astronomer Johann Galle first observed the eighth planet in 1846, confirming the mathematical predictions of Urbain Le Verrier, the naming choice seemed inevitable. The deep blue sphere, shrouded in mystery at the far reaches of the solar system, was christened Neptune, the Roman heir to Poseidon. This act of naming was more prophetic than its perpetrators could have known. The planet Neptune has come to rule an astrological domain that is a perfect celestial reflection of the ancient gods' mythological and psychological territory, the realm of mysticism, illusion, dreams, and the dissolution of boundaries. Unlike the personal planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, or the social planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune is one of the transpersonal or generational planets, along with Uranus and Pluto. Its orbit is so slow, taking nearly 165 years to circle the Sun, that it spends about 14 years in each sign of the zodiac. Its influence, therefore, defines the subconscious spiritual and artistic aspirations, as well as the collective delusions and escapist tendencies of an entire generation. It represents a force that operates beyond the individual ego, a cosmic tide that shapes the cultural and spiritual currents of an era. Astrologically, Neptune governs all things that dissolve structure and blur boundaries. Its domain encompasses spirituality, mysticism, and unconditional compassion, as well as the urge to merge with a reality larger than the self. It is the planet of the artist, the musician, the poet, and the visionary, granting access to the formless realms of imagination from which creative works are born. Gustav Holst, in his orchestral suite The Planets, titled his final movement Neptune the Mystic. The piece is ethereal, shimmering and formless, ending with a wordless female choir that fades into nothingness, perfectly capturing the planet's essence of boundless, dissolving mystery. Neptune is the ruler of the zodiac sign Pisces, and it is associated with the 12th house in the astrological chart. Pisces, the final sign, represents the end of a cycle, the dissolution back into the cosmic ocean from which all life emerged. Pisceans are often characterized by their empathy, intuition, and porous emotional boundaries, feeling the joys and sorrows of the world as their own. The 12th house is similarly the realm of the hidden, the subconscious, and the collective. It is the house of secrets, sorrows, self-undoing, karma, and confinement in institutions like hospitals and prisons. Yet it is also the house of monasteries, spiritual retreat, and profound mystical experience. This duality is exactly what we discovered earlier about Neptune's influence. The positive manifestation of Neptune is divine inspiration, selfless service, and a transcendent connection to the unity of all life. It is the artist lost in their work. It is the mystic in ecstatic union with the divine. It is the humanitarian dedicating their life to easing suffering. It is the force that allows us to see beyond the hard edges of reality into the subtle and interconnected web of being. It is the gentle fog that softens the harsh light of day, revealing a world of enchantment and wonder. However, the negative expression of this same dissolving principle is confusion, delusion, deception, and escapism. When the boundaries of the ego dissolve in an unhealthy way, it can lead to a loss of identity, a vulnerability to deception, and a descent into chaos. Neptune governs addiction, where individuals seek to escape the pain of reality by merging with a substance. It rules over illusion, glamour, deceit, and the seductive mirages that lead us astray. It is the fog that obscures the path, causing confusion and disorientation. This dark side of Neptune is a perfect parallel to the wrathful Poseidon, the god who could conjure disorienting sea mists and devastating storms. The persecutor of Odysseus, who lost his way for 10 years upon the wine-dark, deceptive sea. The same waters that can lead to mystical union can also drown the unsuspecting soul in a sea of confusion and despair. The planet's discovery story itself is deeply Neptunian. It was found not by chance, but because astronomers noticed Uranus was deviating from its expected orbit, suggesting the gravitational pull of an unseen body. Neptune was a ghost in the machine, its presence felt before it was seen. It was a mystery whose solution lay beyond the visible, a perfect metaphor for its astrological meaning. It represents the unseen forces, the subtle energies, and the hidden spiritual dimensions that shape our reality, pulling on us in ways we may not consciously understand. To work with the energy of Neptune is to learn to live by faith and intuition, to surrender the need for concrete certainty, and to trust the mysterious currents that flow beneath the surface of everyday life. In the esoteric traditions of alchemy and philosophy, the cosmos is understood through the interplay of fundamental elements, numbers, and spiritual essences. Within this framework, Poseidon or Neptune holds a place of supreme importance as the undisputed master of the element of water and its associated mysteries. His influence permeates the alchemical understanding of creation, the symbolic language of numbers, and the classification of the building blocks of matter. The four classical elements, fire, air, water, and earth, are the cornerstones of this worldview. In The Secret Teachings of All Ages, Manly P. Hall recounts a description by the French scholar Dupuy of 4 celestial horses representing these elements. The first horse of fire belonged to Jupiter, the second of air to Juno, the fourth, immovable and representing earth, to Vesta. The third horse, symbolizing water, was sacred to Neptune. Dupuy describes this horse as being of heavy gait and described a very small circle. This imagery suggests the dense, weighty, and inwardly focused nature of the water element. Water is receptive, passive, and life-containing. While fire and air expand outwards and upwards, water pulls inwards and downwards, seeking the lowest point and forming pools of deep potential. The myth continues that the thundering steed of Neptune also became covered with sweat, which overflowed the immovable horse of Vesta and resulted in the deluge of Deucalion. This illustrates the alchemical belief in the cyclical interaction of the elements, where the power of water can overwhelm and purify the earth, leading to a new creation. The water element, as Hall notes, has always been a feminine symbol, and its spiritual dimension is inhabited by a host of beings known as undines or water spirits. These elementals, existing in a humid or liquid ether, are the animating principles of water in all its forms. Hall lists their many names: Oreades, Nereides, Limoniades, Naiads, water sprites, sea maids, mermaids, and Potomides. These beings, ruled by Neptune, embody the soul of the water element. Beauty seems to be the keynote of the water spirits, Hall observes, linking the Neptunian realm to grace, symmetry, and aesthetic form. These nymphs and oceanids are the personified consciousness of every river, lake, and ocean wave, as the invisible spirits that give water its magical, life-giving, and sometimes dangerous qualities. Beyond the element itself, Neptune is connected to specific numbers and metals that reveal deeper layers of his esoteric significance. Hall mentions the Pythagorean association of the number 8, or the ogdoad, with Neptune. The ogdoad was sacred because it represented the first cube, having 8 corners, and symbolized perfect balance, being divisible by 2 down to the monad, 8, 4, 2, 1. Hall lists the key words for the ogdoad as love, counsel, prudence, law, and convenience. This is a striking list, While love might seem fitting for the god of the fluid and emotional realm, the inclusion of counsel, prudence, and law resonates powerfully with the depiction of Poseidon in Plato's Atlantis. The laws of the Atlantean kings, the source of their prudent and just society, were handed down by Poseidon and inscribed on the pillar in his temple. The number 8, the number of cosmic balance and law, is thus the numerical key to his role as a divine lawgiver. Even the great Masonic scholar Albert Pike was mystified by some of these connections, admitting, "I do not understand why." The cube is Neptune, which only adds to the esoteric depth of the correspondence. The symbolism of the fish is also deeply tied to the Neptunian realm. Hall explains that the Hebrew word nun means both fish and growth. He points out the significance of the fish symbol in Christianity, where Christ is the son of the fish, Joshua, son of Nun, and converts were likened to fish returning to the sea of Christ. The dolphin, a creature of intelligence and grace, was held sacred to both Neptune and Apollo. Its connection to Apollo, the sun god, once again echoes the Jungian idea of the unconscious, Neptune, providing a foundation for consciousness, Apollo. The dolphin, bridging both realms, was seen as a divine preservative power, carrying shipwrecked sailors to safety, a direct manifestation of Neptune's role as savior of ships. And when we look at physical elements, Hall makes a curious assertion: radium to be the metal of Neptune. While radium is a powerful radioactive element, a more direct and modern correspondence exists with the element Neptunium. Discovered in 1940, this element was named after the planet Neptune, just as its predecessor on the periodic table, uranium, was named for Uranus. Neptunium is the first of the transuranic elements, namely those that lie beyond uranium. This is symbolically perfect. In the classical solar system, Saturn, Kronos, represented the final boundary of visible reality. Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are the modern trans-Saturnian planets, representing forces beyond the classical order. Similarly, uranium was once thought to be the heaviest element. Neptunium is the first step into a new, unseen, and powerfully radioactive reality. It is a synthetic element, born from the bombardment of uranium in nuclear reactors. It is a product of humanity unlocking the deepest forces of matter, which is a process fraught with both immense power and immense danger, much like trafficking with the god of the deep. Neptunium, a heavy radioactive metal born of unseen forces, is the ultimate physical emblem of the god who rules the dense, dark and powerful depths of the cosmos. The trident of Poseidon is more than a weapon or a tool. It is a cosmic key, a mathematical theorem rendered in bronze, and a symbol that bridges the terrestrial and the divine. While Zeus wields the singular decisive thunderbolt, and Hades possesses the helm of invisibility, Poseidon's instrument is fundamentally triadic. And this threefold nature reveals profound truths about his dominion and function. The physical trident emerged from the mundane world of Mediterranean fishing, where the three-pronged spear proved superior to single-pointed implements for catching swift-moving prey in the refracting, deceptive medium of water. Yet in the hands of a god, this practical tool becomes charged with metaphysical significance. The oldest coins of Poseidonia from the 6th century BCE depict the god wielding his trident, and an Attic red figure, Kylix, from around the 5th century BCE shows him using it to kill the giant polybotes, establishing the weapon as his defining attribute from the earliest artistic representations. The ancients themselves pondered the meaning of its three prongs. According to the Vatican mythographers, Neptune's trident symbolizes the three properties of water: liquidity, fecundity, and drinkability. The Roman scholar Maurus Servius Honoratus viewed it as three-pronged because the sea is said to be a third part of the world, or because there are three kinds of water: seas, streams, and rivers. These interpretations reveal how the Romans understood the trident as embodying the complete dominion over all forms of water, from the salt seas to the fresh streams, from the life-giving to the destructive. The trident's triadic symbolism spans across cultures. In Hindu tradition, Shiva wields the Trishula, which is a three-pronged weapon bearing striking similarity to Poseidon's trident. The Trishula's 3 points represent the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. These are the fundamental qualities of nature in Vedic philosophy: harmony, activity and inertia. Both weapons belong to gods of destruction and transformation, deities who dissolve the existing order to permit new creation. This parallel suggests that the 3-pronged spear may be an archetypal symbol, arising independently in different cultures to represent divine power over the fundamental forces of existence. In myth, the trident demonstrates its versatility as an instrument of creation and destruction. With it, Poseidon strikes the Acropolis to create a salt spring during his contest with Athena. He uses it to shatter rocks, to call forth or subdue storms, and to shake the earth. In another myth, he creates springs to reward Amymone for her encounter with him. The trident is simultaneously a key that opens passages between worlds, a tool that shapes geography, and a weapon that enforces divine will. The mathematical perfection of 3, which is the first odd prime number, the minimum needed to define a plane, and the number of dimensions in our spatial reality, makes the trident a geometric assertion of completeness. Where Zeus's thunderbolt represents the One, the absolute monarchical power descending from above, and where binary symbols speak to duality and opposition, the trident transcends simple binary thinking. It suggests synthesis, the third option, or the unexpected resolution. When Poseidon strikes the earth at Attica and produces a salt spring, he creates something that is neither purely land nor purely sea, but a third thing, a paradox, a boundary crosser, salt water emerging from solid rock. The trident also served as a religious symbol in ritual practice. During the Roman Neptunalia, celebrated on July 23rd at the height of summer drought, citizens built huts of branches and offered sacrifices to Neptune for water. The festival emphasized his role as provider of fresh water, which is the life-sustaining aspect of his trident's power, as crucial to agricultural Rome as his maritime dominion was to seafaring Greeks. Perhaps most tellingly, the trident functions as the visible sign of Poseidon's divine identity. Ancient art consistently depicts him with this attribute, making him instantly recognizable. It is the medium through which his divine nature manifests in recognizable form. The trident is his sovereignty made visible, his threefold nature given material presence, the perfect emblem for a god who rules the fluid realm that exists between the solid earth and the ethereal sky, wielding power that can create, destroy, and transform with equal ease. For all his creative power and deep wisdom, Poseidon is equally defined by his capacity for immense wrath and his active, often violent engagement in the affairs of mortals and gods. His rage, like a sudden ocean storm, is terrifying and relentless. He is a god of profound emotional intensity, quick to take offense and slow to forgive. This aspect of his character is most vividly portrayed in the Homeric epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey, where he acts as both a fierce partisan in war and a vindictive personal antagonist. The Iliad places Poseidon squarely in the midst of the Trojan War, where he is a staunch and passionate supporter of the Achaeans, the Greeks. His animosity towards the Trojans is rooted in a past betrayal. As he recounts in a heated conversation with Apollo, he and Apollo once served the Trojan king Laomedon for a year, with Poseidon building an exceeding fair wall around the city. When the work was done, the dread Laomedon refused to pay them and sent them away with threats. This deep-seated grudge fuels his actions throughout the war. He seethes at the success of the Trojans and bristles under Zeus's command to remain neutral. His anger is stoked further by Hera. In one scene, as they watch the Trojans overwhelm the Achaeans, it is Hera who turns to him and says, lamenting his inaction, "Ah me, thou shaker of earth, wide of sway, not even hath the heart in thy breast pity of the Danaans that are perishing." Unable to restrain himself, Poseidon repeatedly intervenes in the conflict, often in disguise. He comes forth from the deep sea in the likeness of Calchas, the Achaean seer, to rally the troops. Homer describes his effect. The enfolder and shaker of earth smote the twain with his staff and filled them with valorous strength and made their limbs light, their feet and their hands above. He moves among the Argive ranks, his presence a secret surge of divine power, turning the tide of battle. He is an active participant, his voice loud-founding through the roaring deep, as the Orphic hymn says. He even leads the charge himself, bearing in his strong hand a dread sword, long of edge, like unto the lightning, a terrifying vision that makes the sea itself surge up to the Achaean ships. His interventions are so effective that they infuriate Zeus and ultimately lead to a direct confrontation between the brothers, in a clash of sky and sea that threatens to tear the cosmos apart. Poseidon also demonstrates a protective, almost paternal care for his favored heroes. He personally enters the fray to save Aeneas, a Trojan, ironically, but one fated to survive, from Achilles, knowing it is not Aeneas's destiny to die. Homer recounts how Poseidon shed a mist over the eyes of Achilles and magically lifted Aeneas from the battlefield, depositing him safely at the edge of the fight before counseling him to avoid Achilles in the future. This act shows a god who, despite his partisan fury, is also an enforcer of fate's grander design. If the Iliad shows Poseidon as a god of war, the Odyssey reveals his capacity for a more personal and enduring vendetta. His persecution of Odysseus is the central engine of the epic's plot. As the story begins, all the gods have taken pity on the wandering hero, except Neptune, who still persecuted him without ceasing and would not let him get home. His anger stems from Odysseus's blinding of his son, the Cyclops Polyphemus. This is not a matter of politics or old grudges. It is the raw fury of a slighted father. Throughout Odysseus's journey, Poseidon is a constant, malevolent presence. When he returns from a trip to Ethiopia and spots Odysseus sailing near the land of the Phaeacians, his rage is palpable. It made him very angry, so he wagged his head and muttered to himself, saying, "Good heavens, so the gods have been changing their minds about Ulysses while I was away in Ethiopia, and now he is close to the land of the Phaeacians, where it is decreed that he shall escape from the calamities that have befallen him. Still, he shall have plenty of hardship yet before he has done with it." He then unleashes a monstrous storm that shatters Odysseus's raft and nearly drowns him. The hero only survives thanks to the intervention of the sea nymph Ino. This is Poseidon, at his most elemental, a tempest of pure destructive emotion. His rage was particularly potent against mortals who displayed hubris against the sea. The fate of Ajax the Lesser is a testament to this. As Homer recounts in the Odyssey, Ajax survived his initial shipwreck and boasted that the gods could not drown him even though they had tried to do so. Poseidon heard this large talk. He seized his trident in his two brawny hands and split the rock of Gyre in two pieces. The part on which Ajax was sitting fell into the sea, and the hero drank salt water and was drowned. The punishment for hubris was direct, elemental, and final. His wrath extends even to those who help his quarry. The Phaeacians, a seafaring people descended from Poseidon himself, take pity on Odysseus and grant him passage home to Ithaca. For this act of kindness they suffer a terrible punishment. As their ship returns, Poseidon, with Zeus's permission, turns it to stone just as it enters their harbour. He then threatens to bury their city under a high mountain. This act is a chilling demonstration of his jealousy and power. He is the lord of the sea, and safe passage upon it is his gift to grant or withhold. The Phaeacians, by becoming the ultimate saviour of ships for his hated enemy, have usurped his authority, and for this they must be punished. Cicero, in Of the Nature of Gods, suggests that the title Son of Neptune was a colloquialism for men who were remarkably terrible and prone to injustice, rapine, and other acts of ferocity. This reputation was earned through the god's own mythological behaviour. His conflicts are not cold and calculated. They are hot-blooded, passionate, and often brutal. He is a god who feels deeply and acts directly upon those feelings, whether it is the loyalty that drives him to aid the Achaeans, or the vengeful fury that sends Odysseus to the edge of despair. His interventions are a reminder that the deep sea of the cosmos is not a placid and indifferent force, but a living, feeling entity of immense and terrible power. The entire exploration of Poseidon begins with Plato's premise in the Cratylus, the idea that a name holds an inherent mystical connection to the essence of the thing it describes. The name is a logos, a true account. Yet this ancient worldview finds its contrary in the modern psychological insights of Carl Jung. In Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche, Jung identifies the fundamental error of confusing our descriptions of reality with reality itself, or as they say, confusing the map with the territory. He writes, "The basic error of every Weltanschauung, which can be translated as worldview, is its remarkable tendency to pretend to be the truth of things themselves, whereas actually it is only a name which we give to things." For Jung, the act of naming the planet Neptune after the ancient god is a scientific convenience, a working hypothesis rather than a metaphysical truth. He asks, would any scientist argue whether the name of the planet Neptune befits the nature of this heavenly body, and whether therefore it is the only right name? Of course not. This distinction, Jung argues, is what separates the scientific mind from a more primitive one. For the primitive mind, the name possesses absolute power over the thing. It is a form of sympathetic magic. In the fairy tale, you can blast Rumpelstiltskin to fragments if you call him by his right name. The tribal chief hides his true name so that nobody can put a spell on him. For the Kabbalists, the possession of the true name of God meant absolute magic power. For this mindset, Jung summarizes, the thing itself is posited by the name. What he says runs the old saying about pata. This piece of unconscious primitivity, as he calls it, is the bane of every worldview. While science has moved beyond it, Jung notes that humanity is impoverished by this change of status. In the old style, man had naively substituted his mind for things. He could regard his own face as the face of the world, see himself in the likeness of God. In the modern scientific view, he does not think of himself. He thinks only of the world, of the object. He has put himself aside and sacrificed his personality to the objective spirit of research. This essay, therefore, has charted a course between two great poles of human thought. It began with Plato's search for the logos within the name Poseidon, as an attempt to grasp the true essence of the god through a word that was more than a label. It was a revelation. It now arrives at Jung's warning against mistaking our own mental map, our Weltanschauung, for the territory itself. The journey from Plato to Jung is the journey from a world where gods have true names that can be discovered, to a world where we must recognize that the names we use are our own creations, reflecting the structure of our own psyches. What if this is not a contradiction to be resolved, but a paradox to be inhabited? Perhaps the Platonic search for the Logos is the timeless intuitive impulse of the human soul to find meaning, to believe that there is an inherent order in the cosmos that our words can touch. And perhaps the Jungian recognition of the Weltanschauung is the necessary, humbling awareness of the conscious mind that its tools for doing so are imperfect and self-referential. The true act of knowing, then, may not be a choice between these two poles, but the tension held between them. Is the act of naming a force Poseidon just a projection of our own inner ocean, or is it an invocation? Does the name, once spoken, give form to a formless power, creating a vessel through which we can relate to the vast, impersonal, and terrifying reality of the sea? The scientific name dihydrogen monoxide grants us mastery over the chemical substance, but the mythic name Poseidon grants us a relationship with its soul, its rage, its beauty, its wisdom, and its terror. Jung speaks of the impoverishment that comes when we sacrifice our personality to the objective spirit of research. What is the true nature of this loss? Is it the loss of a living cosmos? Does the universe fall silent when we cease to believe our names for it have power? This dialogue between the ancient philosopher and the modern psychologist elevates our study of Poseidon from a mere description of a myth into a profound meditation on the fundamental human act of attempting to name and thereby understand the vast, impersonal, and divine forces of the cosmos. To trace the path of Poseidon-Neptune is to follow a current that runs from the most ancient strata of myth to the most modern discoveries of science. He is a figure of staggering complexity and a divine entity who refuses to be confined to a single role or element. He is the stable foundation upon which consciousness is built, and he is the earthshaker who can bring that foundation crashing down. He is the father of kings, who govern a utopian paradise under his divine law. And he is the progenitor of lawless monsters who devour human flesh. He is the savior of ships, guiding sailors through calm seas, and he is the god of the tempest, whose personal vendettas can stretch across a decade of torment. His dominion is the liquid realm in all its forms. It is the physical ocean that covers our planet, which is a world of both wondrous life and crushing pressure. It is the psychological ocean of the unconscious, which is the source of our dreams, our memories, and our deepest creative and destructive urges. It is the celestial ocean of deep space, where his namesake planet drifts like a blue mystic, broadcasting a silent, dissolving influence upon the generations. And it is the alchemical ocean of primordial substance, as the element of water from which all life emerges and to which it must return. The symbols associated with him form a cohesive whole, each illuminating the others. The trident is his scepter of power over land, sea, and storm. The horse, his creation, embodies the untamed, powerful energy of the waves and the wild spirit. The bull, sacrificed in his honor, represents the potent, generative force of nature. The dolphin is his messenger of salvation, and the fish is the timeless emblem of life emerging from the deep. Even the modern element of Neptunium, radioactive and born of unseen forces, reminds us of his nature as a lord of hidden, transformative power. Perhaps the most profound revelation in the study of Poseidon is the discovery that his mark is written into ourselves. The hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped structure in our brain that allows us to form memories and navigate our world, is named for the mythical creature that pulls his chariot. This anatomical echo of myth is a stunning reminder of the deep connection between the universe without and the universe within. The god who rules the watery depths of the world finds his analogue in the neural architecture that governs the watery depths of our own past. Plato, whose own family, according to Diogenes Laertius, traced its lineage to the sea god, seems to have understood this intuitive connection. His explorations of Poseidon in the Atlantis myth are not just stories. They are philosophical inquiries into the nature of divine order, the soul, and the foundations of civilization. In the end, Poseidon-Neptune remains a force to be reckoned with. He is the necessary counterbalance to the bright, ordered world of the sky gods. He is the reminder that beneath every solid surface lies a fluid, dynamic, and powerful depth. He is the wisdom that comes from surrender, the terror of dissolution, and the creative chaos from which new forms are born. To know him is to understand that the world is not a fixed and stable thing, but a constant, flowing process. He is the deep current of being itself, and his voice, for those who listen, is the eternal, rhythmic roar of the sea. This connection is inescapable, a bond that lasts until death. Even after Odysseus reclaims his throne, his final destiny, as prophesied by Tiresias in the underworld, is bound to the sea god. He is tasked to travel inland with an oar until he finds a people who know nothing of the sea, and there he must make a final, great sacrifice to Poseidon. Only then will his end come. The prophecy states that his death will come gently from the sea, a final, quiet reclamation by the very element he struggled against for a decade. The sea is both his tormentor and his final peace.